the concept of speed of light. He
Yeah.
asks he asks his wife to talk about it, and he says, "Honey, if I hold a mirror in my hand and
Uh,
we're going at the speed of light,
uh,
what would we see in the mirror?"
nice.
Basically, they will be both invisible at that time if light won't travel any faster. Anyway, sir,
Yeah.
recording has started, and you
Okay.
can start off with the slideshow and let me introduce you, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, all. I welcome you all to the afternoon session. This session is honored by the presence of Dr. Bharat S. Sontaki. Sir is Principal Scientist and Head Department Extension System Management Division, ICR, and National Academy of Agriculture Research Management, Rajendra Nagar, Hyderabad. And the topic chosen by our esteemed guest is participatory technology development in agriculture and allied sectors. Sir, you are audible as well as visible, and we have started recording the session. You
Thank you.
can start by starting the PPT, sir.
Sure, sure. I'll thank you, Mr. Majid, I think, for your very kind introduction. And you have been such a wonderful support. This is exactly what I like, very professional way of doing these programs. In fact, at the outset, I immensely congratulate both the organizers, NAADCL as well as AVFSU, especially Dr. Prakash Kumar Rathore for taking such a brilliant initiative. It's a 21 days national refresher course, jointly organized by two very eminent organizations, very prestigious. And the way they have been doing this program is really like very, very professional. I'm in touch with Dr. Prakash for almost a month, more than a month now. Then he, following at almost every day basis, he asked me to, be on board this program at least 10 minutes before so that we can check all the controls, presentation, audio, and make sure that, everything goes as we planned. Once again, congratulations to organizers and very, very good afternoon to all the distinguished participants. Am I audible once again?
Yes, sir, perfectly audible.
Okay. So friends, in fact, when Dr. Prakash approached me regarding this training program, I didn't know much about what kind of program it would be. Then tentatively, I suggested this topic, participatory technology development in agriculture and allied sectors. But then after that, the program went on a build-up mode and then it took a proper shape. Then I was really thrilled when Dr. Prakash shared the entire contents of the schedule 21 days. And more importantly, the profile of registered participants. Initially, my understanding was this program participation will be limited to only our colleagues and professionals from extension system. But very, very happy to see colleagues from even other research system, and many are there from the academic fraternity, those who are in active teaching. So now I am very happy that I chose this topic, immensely important, fits perfectly into the overall theme of the program, that is reorienting extension and advisory services for sustainable improvement in farmers' conditions or farmers' livelihoods, farmers' empowerment. So the onus is on farmers now. Whenever you talk about extension or even for that matter research. So keeping in view all these things, I have planned my presentation for about an hour, but I definitely will be cutting short at least some slides. And then we'll focus more on understanding the need for this participatory processes or participatory way of working with farmers. So before I start sharing my PPT, let me very clearly, explicitly tell my today's session, this afternoon session is based on two very strong premises. The first premise is farmers are researchers or scientists in their own right. Am I clear? Farmers are researchers or scientists in their own right. If all the participants agree to this first premise, then probably there won't be any further elaboration required on in terms of how we can work with them. So, but the second premise says, though we are convinced that farmers are also researchers, scientists in their own way, in their own right, but their involvement, their participation in research as well as extension and development in general is not up to the extent that is desirable or commensurate with the first premise that farmers are also researchers or scientists. For some reasons, I think we have been relying very heavily on a developmental philosophy which is essentially based on top-down approach or top-heavy approach. Of course, in the last 7.5 decades of our independent India, things have changed in terms of agriculture development, various approaches, and somewhere down the line, we are now realizing the importance and significance of active participation of our stakeholders in our R&D agenda. So with these two basic premises, let me start, running through my slides. Can you see the slide? Whether my slide is visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you start the slideshow?
Okay.
Can you press the hide option?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. See, what I will do is for the next 1 hour, in fact, we'll reserve at least 10 minutes for quick question answer or discussion. In the next 50 minutes or so, my objective is to share knowledge and experience on participatory technology development. Much of this knowledge and experience I have acquired through two means. One is by reading plenty of literature that is available on this particular topic. Secondly, my own observations in my 3 decades long career as scientist in various capacities in Indian Council of Agriculture Research. Being a social scientist with specialization in extension education, my affinity, professional affinity to farmers, world, farming community. So I have some experience of working with.
Sir, you accidentally have muted yourself. Can you unmute yourself? Can you unmute? Yeah. Press the Alt Tab key or go to Chrome. Yeah. Chrome. Google Chrome. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Perfect. Let's go to PPT. Continue with the slideshow, sir. Perfect.
So the more emphasis let's try to place on. Of course, we need to understand the concept, and then there are again embedded some features, and then more emphasis on process. How to encourage farmers to involve as active partners in our research and development agenda. Now, I have a very strong argument that we need to increase our intensity of participatory technology development, or it is also known as farmer participatory research or farmer participatory extension. The major rationale or justification comes from probably one of the most significant documents that is brought out by National Commission on Farmers, very ably headed by our father of Green Revolution, living legend, Professor M.S. Swaminathan. In this particular slide, I have tried to highlight some text. I have borrowed this particular content from that report, third report. See what they say. In the whole process of participatory research and technology development, researcher is the most crucial person to ensure success. So we are talking about involving farmers, working very intensively with farmers, but it is researchers who are going to make a lot of difference in terms of how we approach, in terms of our own perceptions, our own attitudes. Because there is a myth amongst large majority of scientific fraternity that working in the field, especially through participatory processes, we don't have much gains in terms of career mobility, like high quality papers in high impact factor journals. We may not get many patents or other intellectual property rights, but that's only a myth. Then this is unfortunate legacy of the top-down research and extension. Then the report also very, I think, succinctly captured national level institutions like Manage and NAM should emphasize this approach in their training programs. So like that, very, very lucid, very, with a lot of practical recommendations this report has made on many issues related to participatory technology development. Now, when you look at the entire technology chain, value chain, that means how the technology is generated, then standardized, tested, integrated, and then communicated and adopted or diffused, gets diffused in the client system or farmer system. This slide I have borrowed from, again, one more very important publication that is brought out by ISNAR, that is International Society for National Agriculture Research. It is the erstwhile, wing of currently the International Food Policy Research Institute. Way back in 1989, they brought out this publication. So what this particular slide illustrates is there is a continuum in terms of research and development, including extension. The technology part of research starts from basic research and strategic research, then technology generation, more through applied kind of researches, then technology targeting. That means it's defining technology domain, on-farm testing, and after technology refinement testing, it gets integrated into the domain. Then comes the part of technology processing, technology diffusion and transfer, and then finally technology adoption. So if you see here, the three major constituents of this entire value chain are the research system or the science part, then the extension system, and especially when we move towards technology diffusion, transfer, and adoption, the client system or farming system. That means irrespective of our expertise, each constituent has its role if you want to realize maximum value from all the technologies, all the research that goes on in agriculture and allied sectors, all the technologies that are generated by investing very, very precious resources of finance as well as human resource and other resources. Now at this stage, let's ponder for a while. Have any idea, suppose if from a particular research institute or from agriculture university, if you have 100 technologies developed, out of those 100, how many eventually end up at farmers level? How many get adopted by the farming community out of 100? So there could be several guesses, but then the most optimistic number is like 30%. That means only 30% of our technologies that we develop through our research, formal research, get eventually or see the light of the day in terms of their adoption, actual adoption by our farming community. Now the big question is what happens to the remaining 70% of the technologies or 70% of the innovations, new knowledge, new configuration of knowledge. Probably it is important, but may not be relevant and important immediately to address hundreds and thousands of problems that our farmers face. So now my basic argument through this session is, can we increase that percentage of adoption, say from 30% to 40 or 50%? And if your answer is yes, then we need more processes like participatory technology development, participatory development, and participatory extension. So this is the actual process, technology generation or development process that we follow conventionally in our research stations, research labs. We start with a research problem identification or perception. Sometimes it could be even old problem for which there is absolutely no practical solution. Or it could be an entirely new problem like the one we are going through now, the pandemic, the corona problem, COVID problem. Then what we try to do is try to analyze the problem in terms of its causes and solutions so that we get a better grip on the problem. And one more disclaimer here. You take it from me, you may be a gifted researcher of world-class repute, but you or your system cannot solve all the problems of our client system, farming community, at a given point of time. That means you need to prioritize those problems which require immediate solution, which affect a large section of the farming community, There are different ways of prioritizing those field problems. Then when we analyze the problems for causes and solutions, it also gives us, okay, we may not be able to solve a particular problem of a say pest or disease 100%. But with our technology, with new knowledge, new package, we can at least overcome or limit the intensity of the problem to say about 10%. That means about 90% of the problem we can overcome. Then project selection, resource allocation, then we plan research activities, implement them, then monitoring and review happens. Then finally we have some results which we field test them through multi-locational trials. Then we come out with a package or what we call as recommendations along with the recommendation domain. And then we try to follow up what happened. I have developed this particular integrated nutrient management package. To what extent it is being accepted and used by farmers. If it is not, what are the reasons? Then how can we improve? Like that, the process goes on. Now, this is the generic framework of technology development that we follow. Now, if we analyze very carefully, amongst the various steps in this process, which steps we involve farmers with some degree of confidence in them. Probably stage number one or step number one for problem identification. Many of our colleagues, go to fields, interact with farmers, and then identify a potential problem for their research. Then some could also, to some extent involve in problem analysis or to some extent problem prioritization. Whereas when it comes to actual implementation of the research or technology generation, up to at least we come out with immediate results. Till that time, we don't consult farmers. Only when it comes to multi-locational trials, we have some mechanisms in our system by which we work with farmers. And then in the latter stages of follow-up, probably we work with farmers a little more. That means there is potential prospects of working with farmers in almost every step of our research process. And it has been happening in some cases or to some extent. That we'll see subsequently. Now, let me just talk about a little bit about understanding the concept of PTDs, which is very important for our further deliberations. It's very simple, friends. It's a creative process of joint experimentation and research by farmers and development agents in discovering ways of farmers improving farmers' livelihoods. Very, very pertinent in the context of theme of this training program. It's a creative process, means there is always room for coming out with newer discoveries, newer knowledge, co-creation of knowledge, innovations, joint experimentation and research. The moment this word comes joint, it involves equal responsibility and equal emphasis on partnership, and then discovering ways of improving farmers' livelihoods. Some scholars also consider it as a process of creative interaction within rural communities in which indigenous and scientific knowledge, very, very important, the native knowledge as well as the scientific knowledge are combined to find solutions to farmers' problems and to take fullest possible advantage of local opportunities. That means irrespective of the problems that we talk of in farmers' conditions, there are also a lot of local opportunities, local advantages. So when we work very intensively with farming communities, involve them as partners, we can achieve a lot of creative interaction. Through that, we can come out with our own process of combining this native knowledge and scientific knowledge for practical problems practical solutions to problems, as well as how to take advantage of local resources and local opportunities, which is critically important for empowerment of farming communities. Now, in a nutshell, actually, the term PTD for short encompasses efforts of development professionals, which is again a very generic term. It includes researchers or scientists, extension professionals, and other service providers. Our colleagues from NGO system, even private system, bankers. There is potentially, like we talk about startups, we talk about entrepreneurs. There is room for involving almost every stakeholder in the R&D process to collaborate with and end users in developing and spreading improved farming practices. So this is a little conceptual background about the participatory technology development. So ultimately, the participatory technology development aim, or its aim is specifically at increasing the R&D capacities of farmers and other stakeholders. See, the only difference between us and farmers of farming communities is that we have, just a minute. Hello. Hello, I'm busy in a session. Call me after an hour. Okay, sorry for that. So I was telling the only difference between us, the scientific fraternity, extension fraternity, and farming communities is that we have a formal degree, say master's or a PhD, whereas farmers, at least majority of farmers may not have that formal degree. But in terms of our actual endeavor, we do formal research, farmers do informal research. Now, using the relative strengths of both the parties, how best we can enhance the research and development capacities of farmers and other stakeholders. So friends, at this point of time, can we think of a day? Can we think of a day where we need not have to run after farmers to promote our technologies? Can we think of a day when farmers come to us and tell us, no, stop this research. You do better focus your research on this problem. We want this kind of technology. We want small machinery which are suited for our tiny land holdings. We want a shorter duration variety by which we can take more than 3 crops or at least 3 crops in a year. So can we think of increasing their capacities to such an extent? That is the ultimate aim of participatory technology development. It's not just coming out with a small innovation or a technology, eventually building their capacities. So once we analyze all these definitions or various theories given by development scholars, PTD is a process in which problems are identified and prioritized by farmers, alternative solutions are defined by farmers, design of experiment is decided by farmers, implementation is done by farmers, and monitoring and evaluation is also done by farmers. Then, what is our role? We have a very critical role. Can you just recall the second slide where the National Commission on Farmers says scientists or researchers have a very, very critical role. That critical role is facilitating the entire process, giving confidence to farmers. Come on, you have been doing research for generations. My research is probably 1 decade, 2 decades old, but your research is at least 1 generation, 2 generations old. How we can build their confidence, enable them to do more of formal researches. Now, why PTD is important? As I said, the basic purpose is increasing that number 30% to 40%, 50% by means of developing appropriate and demand-driven technology. Invariably, when you all write your research proposals for funding either from your university or from other funding agencies, we write this is a need-based problem or need-based research. But then there is a big question there. Whose need are you talking about? Is it farmers' need or is it our own need because we want money? We want revenue generation. We want a RA. We want computer. We want laptop. We want some machinery. So this you need to ponder. To harness farmers' knowledge and creativity, acknowledge the fact that farmers are in the business much, much longer than I and you are. So how can we harness their knowledge and creativity? And farmers are innovative, farmers are quite creative. That's why the entire world today talks about farmers' innovations. To increase adoption and diffusion of technologies, that's what I said, 30 to 40, 40 to 50%. To enhance the responsibility and accountability, it's not just our responsibility and accountability. It's a very simple, sensible, tactic. In your organizations, you may be having, some persons who are always of complaining nature. So one way of, reforming those complaining persons is start involving them in decision-making process. I am not referring to farmers as complaining people, but then, if you want to really make them responsible, involve them in the process, so that they also realize what difficulties we face as scientific fraternity. Then to achieve impact which benefits poor farmers, then eventually to empower farmers and other primary producers. When I use the term farmers, it also includes not only farmers who grow crops, livestock farmers, fish farmers, fishermen, foresters, very, very broad sense of the term farmers. It also includes female farmers, women farmers, farm youth. Now, worldwide, there is a lot of evidences suggesting that PTD is a viable option to ensure that research benefits all categories of farmers. Especially, there is a term used by the developmental policies, that is pro-poor research, pro-poor development. So there are a lot of evidences globally as well as nationally suggesting that participatory technology development is a viable option in that direction. Then research should be effective in improving farmers' livelihood if they means the stakeholders, primary stakeholders. Farmers play a vital role in the process. So some of the salient features of participatory technology development. One is it is client-based, that means farming community-based, and client-led experimentation. That means we need to give more active role to farmers. Then testing relevant problem-solving measures of farmers. Like, how long can we depend on this top-down approach? There are some programs in which we very successfully piloted bottom-up approach also to research and technology development. How can we mainstream those approaches? And this PTD is based on local ecosystem approach. That means local problems, local advantages, local resources. How best we can combine these three for the advantage of local communities. Decentralized research and technology development, and devolution of more responsibility to clients. So basically, again, one more very hard lesson I want to transfer through this session is, please, for heaven's sake, don't refer to farmers as beneficiaries. At least from today onwards, let us very dignifiedly call farmers as partners in our process, research, teaching, and extension processes. In fact, we are the actual beneficiaries in the name of farmers. I earn my livelihood because of farmers. I earn my salary. In some way, my service should be beneficial to farming community. So now, are you clear who are the actual beneficiaries? Then accountability and cost sharing. Yeah, here comes again one more very tactical way. There is a general, feeling or conviction, whatever given free has no value. So same thing happens with, a lot of farming communities also. If you put a small cost element in that, and then they realize the value proposition. They try to use it to the maximum extent. Cost sharing is one very important means of increasing accountability. Then focus on sustainable productivity. When we talk of cost sharing by farming communities, cost need not be always in terms of cash. Cost can also be in terms of their labor, other support services. That is more important. Then, though there are several advantages in participatory technology development, but as of now, there is considerable gap between theory and practice. Theory means plenty of literature is available through micro case studies, small studies conducted here and there. But then in terms of, please be muted. So that means there is considerable gap between theory and practice. Only by increasing the intensity of participation, we can bridge this gap between theory and practice to some extent. One very unique feature of this participatory process is, unlike the formal research that we do in our research stations and then laboratories, informal research does not require or does not have a rigorous methodology. Like, when I do or you do research in your lab or farm, we follow certain research designs like randomized block design, Latin square design, completely randomized design, all these. Whereas when we engage with farming community in farmer participatory research or participatory technology development, we have some other very less rigorous kind of research designs. That's where there is a gap between theory and practice. So this is the reason why we need more efforts with a lot of constant analysis and application. It's an iterative process. The more we work, the more experience we gain. Through that, we can standardize the entire process. That's precisely why we don't have a universally prescribed methodology for farmer participatory research or participatory technology development, because the domains vary greatly. Agroecologies vary greatly. We are talking about local agroecology. That's the reason why probably it will be impossible or very, very difficult to come out with a highly standard methodology. For like one size fits all does not seem to emerge, at least in the near future. This is not at all a new word, actually, participatory technology development. In fact, the genesis of these participatory processes, whether you like it or not, unfortunately coincides with the best part of agriculture development, that is Green Revolution era. In the mid 60s, when we started, realizing the benefits of high yielding varieties and hybrids, this alternative processes, thinking on alternative processes coincides with that development. And maybe after 2-3 decades, in spite of lot of benefits from Green Revolution, it also came with lot of woes, lot of problems that we all understand now in retrospect. So parallelly, this alternative thinking has been going on under different names. So currently we talk of PTD, PRA, all these, even PLA, participatory learning for action. Various terminologies will come across in literature. So what are the major objectives of participatory technology development? As we discussed already, technology development and customization. This is very important, my friends. Customization to suit users' conditions. Now also customization happens in many technologies. It happens. That's precisely where our colleagues from KVK system, Krishi Vigyan Kendra system are playing a very, very decisive role in fine-tuning, customizing technologies developed by the NARES, National Agriculture Research and Education System, comprising of ICR institutes, state agriculture universities, other autonomous bodies. Then second objective is to improve functional efficiency of formal research. So what does it mean? A while ago, I talked about the percentage of technologies adopted by farming community. The most optimistic number is 30%. Now, the functional efficiency means how can we improve this 30% to 40%, 50%. It is possible by engaging in more of participatory research. Capacity strengthening, not only of farming communities, but also our own capacity strengthening for these processes. Eventually, it's empowering farming communities, rural communities, or local communities. Now, in the next 10-15 minutes, we'll quickly run through various stages or steps in the participatory technology development processes. So when we want to actually take up a participatory research, what process should we follow? It involves 7 steps. First one is very critical, getting started. Like, we say, well begun is half won. It's not just half done, half won also. यानी कि आप अच्छा शुरुआत करेंगे तो आधा जीत लिया आपने जंग. So getting started is a very, very important, crucial step. Here, normally we don't talk anything about research or technology generation refinement. Our purpose is to only build confidence and rapport with the new situation, a new village, a new ecosystem. Then understand that ecosystem to the extent possible, nitty-gritties, and mobilize awareness, the need for working together. Otherwise, if you start with some promise, no, we want to work with you because we will give you more technologies, that itself can cause a lot of heartburn in the long run. If you don't stick to our promise, if you don't realize our promise. So the better thing, through my experience, what I have learned is, don't make any promise, at least in the initial stage. Just let us understand each other. We know you have a lot of problems. We have some limitations. Now, by working together, we can, try to build on our own relative strengths. As a formal system, we have some strength. As the informal system, you have some strength. So how best we can work together so that your livelihoods can be improved, and eventually you become a kind of guiding post for us to take up further research. Then gaining insights, it's again spending more time with the local communities, identify their problems, prioritize their problems, then analyze driving and restraining forces. See what happens as like if you are a first timer to this kind of farmers participatory research or taking up a research project in a village setting, there will be a lot of obstacles, let me tell you. It's not that easy. But then it's not completely undoable. It is doable. There are different ways. You talk about any village, there must be some development agency already working in that village. So try to have some prior information. If some NGO is very actively working in that village, try to collaborate in the initial stages with that NGO or even a private partner or some innovative farmers, progressive farmers of that community, so that you slowly start building rapport and then gaining their confidence. First 2 tests are meant only for that. Then in the third step, you start, talking more about your main agenda, like finding locally relevant solutions through research, through on-farm experimentation, screening of options, choosing research criteria. Like this is again very important. Always, criteria for evaluation of your intervention, maybe an on-farm trial or a new varietal development exercise. The criteria should come essentially from your stakeholders, farmers, farming community. Then develop an agreed research agenda. Here it should be very, very transparent. To the extent possible, try to discuss this in village, Gram Sabhas, village panchayat, and don't try to give a message or room for a message that you are prone for only particular section in the village community. Again, here there are prescribed guidelines, like better ways of working, better ways of making everything transparent, involving the entire village ecosystem. Then setting the stage for experimentation. There it's very simple. In any village, say about 90% of farmers are not following something like integrated pest management. So you want to demonstrate the advantages of integrated pest management. Then what happens? The existing practice becomes a local check. Then your intervention that you are going to implement through research, on-farm research, integrated farming system model for a given agroecological situation, that becomes your control. Then you plan and design experiments. Then while designing experiments, you also identify some farmers as very key researchers. What happens while working with farmers and farming communities, it may not be feasible, even though you are willing, it may not be feasible to stay in that village throughout the cycle, entire cycle of this process. It may take anywhere between 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or 1 full year. At the most, you can post one of your research staff, maybe RA, SRF, or a young professional in that village. But to make the entire process more facilitatory, more participatory, identify some farmers who show a lot of enthusiasm and interest as key researchers. So they will be recording all the observations if you are not able to make it to that village during critical stages of recording observations. That's exactly what is design evaluation protocols. And in the next step, you actually go for implementation of interventions, farmer experiments, and measurement or observation of research at various stages. Then you have a record. You also encourage farmers to teach them, train them in record maintenance, logbook maintenance, how we record research observations. Then that will allow the farming community a better position to analyze results. Here, unlike we do statistical analysis, farmers analysis is very simple. Those who are conversant with participatory rural appraisal, very, very fascinating exercises farmers have in comparing the results. Like the entire village, 90% of farmers is like a control group. Then you have an experimental group where maybe in 5 farmers fields, you have laid out this integrated farming system model. So they compare results across already identified indicators. then don't limit this experience sharing to only those 5 farmers on whose field you have laid out the experiment, or to that village, or maybe to even neighboring 1 or 2 villages. This is where you have to create an urge for more uptake by inviting as many farmers from as many villages as you could under the resource constraints. That means try to make these field days a real, showcase, like big events, so that they create some urge or need in the other farmers of other villages also to come forward for such participatory experimentations. Then, as I told, the first step is always very critical. Similarly, step number 8, sustaining PTD, is again extremely difficult and very, very critical. Now, assuming that we have an active lifespan as a researcher or a professional researcher ranging anywhere from 3.5 to 4 decades maximum. That means in our service, we can work maximum 35 to 40 years. So in those 35 to 40 years, at the most, we can work with 5 or 10 villages. That means you cannot afford to work continuously in the same ecosystem, same village forever. Somewhere you need to move out. And before moving out, how can we ensure that once I go to some other village, some other ecosystem, the conditions in this village, project village, where I have invested, farmers have invested a lot of resources, we have invested a lot of resources, do not go back to earlier situation from where we started. So there is always this risk with the projectized development. That's what we say. We work in a village during a project of say 3 years, 5 years. Then after that we move out. Then maybe after a decade, if you happen to visit the same village, you will find very, very common. Whatever little gains you had made in that research are nullified because of lack of sustainability, lack of sustaining your efforts. So how to create this self-management capacity of farmers? Here we need a lot of planning, a lot of, even commit resources. Some of the international projects, actually, they have separate provision for, such kind of project sustenance activities. Then eventually it's scaling up or phasing out. So before you move out, make sure by some processes, you identify key farmers, you continue for another cycle of 3 years, 5 years, you gradually reduce your involvement to the extent that eventually you can remain only a friend, philosopher, and guide. Even remotely also you can facilitate. Then let farmers take the lead. If required, they can visit your research station, your lab, or be in touch on social media or through phones. So there are processes of even sustaining. Consolidation of efforts, dissemination to more farmers, and moving out, reaching out to other locales. These are important activities during the last stage, which is again very, very important stage or step in PTD process. So friends, so far we have seen the crux of PTD in terms of what it is, what are its salient features, importance, and then the entire process consisting of 9 steps. Now, it's very easy to talk about participation of farmers. There are different degrees in which we can think of involving farmers or working with farmers. The first one is contractual participation, which is very, very common. You do very extensively through our multi-locational trials, on-farm research, on-farm trials, where it's a simple contract that we ask farmers, you give a tiny piece of land for laying out our research in exchange of some mini kits or some other benefits. It's more of a give and take, very rudimentary form of participation. Second level is consultative, where we consult farmers like doctor and patient. Sometimes, many a times, farmers come to us with their problems, ask us for solutions or prescriptions. It could be also the other way around. We visit, like, joint diagnostic team visits farmers' fields, farmers' consultations for knowing, asking, understanding their problems, and then identify suitable problems for research. The higher form of participation is collaborative, where it's more formal in nature, sometimes even with the farmer associations, farmer producer organizations, producer companies. We enter into very formal written agreements, collaborative agreements, and then take up activities as per the agreed plan of work. the ultimate form of participation is collegiate. The term collegiate means we are equal colleagues in terms of everything, give and take, in terms of responsibility, in terms of accountability, in terms of resource sharing. We are colleagues, we are equal partners. Now, one best example I can cite for this collegiate partnership is like, I am sure there are some colleagues here from Maharashtra. We have this Maha Grapes, Maha Mangoes, Maha Pomegranate, Grape Growers Association of Maharashtra, Mango Growers Association of Maharashtra, Pomegranate Growers Association of Maharashtra, or some, Shetkari Sahkari Sangh. Very, very, powerful lobby of farmers in terms of cooperatives. Even I have read also, this Maha Grapes, such a strong organization, vibrant organization. They have their own EuroGAP standards for export of, grape and other products. And they do come to our formal institutions, research institutions, with their problems, and they also are ready to finance our research. Very, very powerful level of participation. So eventually, like our approach should be, if you are a beginner, start with contractual, move towards consultative. Once you start winning their confidence, building more rapport, then go for collaborative and eventually turn those communities into collegiate kind of partners. So what are the different benefits of this participatory technology development? These are, kind of reiteration of the importance to encourage more farmer experimentations, harnesses the power of indigenous knowledge or indigenous technical know-how, motivates farmers by respecting their views. Then once they get motivated, they feel confident and they come forward to more actively involved. Rigorous testing of technology under users' conditions, technology customization. When the technology is customized as per the local adaptations, local requirements, there are more chances of increasing technology adoption. That way, it complements formal research. That means eventually, the percentage of adoption is all the likely to move from 30% to 40%, 50%. Though it has a lot of promises and then benefits, it also has its share of, obstacles, but these are mostly perceived kind of obstacles. This is only how we think, and sometimes even farmers also think. We are very comfortable in laying out an experiment in our research farm or in my lab because everything is in my control. Whereas if it is in a village, since I am not going to stay there for a long time, there is always the threat of mismanagement. अगर मैं नहीं हूं तो कोई इसको बर्बाद कर सकता है, सत्यानाश कर सकता है. इस तरह का फीलिंग हमारे पास हो सकता है. Then failure of technologies may be construed as our inadequacies. अगर टेक्नोलॉजी फेल हो गया, एक्सपेरिमेंट फेल हो गया, तो farmers may think of us as a very bad scientist, poor scientist, इसको कुछ नहीं आता. But it's only a perception problem, our own perception. Risk of exposing farmers to too many uncertainties. Some of us think like, already farming is a very risky proposition. अरे क्यों भाई उनको और रिस्क में डालना है? Because farming is risky, experimentation is again more risky. तो दो तरह का रिस्क को क्यों हम फार्मर्स को झेलना? इस तरह का फीलिंग हो सकता है. Lack of skills and experience in participatory research, very, very obvious reason, obstacle. More importantly, lack of time, motivation, and communication skills. Because when you want to work with farming communities, your communication skills, you need to tone down to a level by which you can very easily communicate your science in simple words. It requires a different style of communication. Then what farmers think, research would take too much time. हमारे पास इतना टाइम नहीं होता. मुश्किल से एक या दो क्रॉप लेते हैं, 4-5 जानवर है, आपको रिसर्च के लिए कहाँ पे टाइम दे पाएंगे? Too great a risk in the production system. Already farming risk है. Then fear of punishment, technology fails. If our experiment fails, then you may not come to us. Like that, they have some perceptions. Lack of communication link with scientists. With majority of the cases, this is a very valid obstacle. Then poor perception about research systems. Many of our colleagues, farmer partners, have this perception. They say, I don't know what you do in your labs. My problems from the last 1-2 generations remain the same, not solved. This kind of perception they tend to have because of lack of visibility, lack of connect, by and large. Now, how can we institutionalize the whole process? It requires certain adjustments or prerequisites in our formal processes, like we need to have institutional policy, my friends. That means out of, say, if your institute has a provision for 10 research projects, can we reserve at least 20% of our budget and 2 projects should be in this mode of pharma participatory project? That is one way of thinking about institutional policy. Then methodologies in the research project cycle about how to select farmer for experimentation and what should be their level of representation in terms of contractual, consultative, collaborative, and collegiate participation. And well-defined activity follow-up, who is accountable from our side, how frequently we need to visit, do we have resources for that, then continued and integrated feedback. These are kind of methodologies we require to maintain that entire chain of events. Capacity building, very, very important. That's why we have exclusive programs on participatory rural appraisal, PTD, then constant practice and analysis, because this is not a universally standardized practice or process so far. Only through our experience, we are learning in bits and pieces. Very, very important is we need to forget our disciplinary background when we go to village. Because friends, please realize farmers' problems do not, rather farmers do not have any importance attached to any particular discipline, subject discipline. As long as their problems are solved by an agronomist or even a social scientist or a pathologist or even a molecular scientist, molecular biologist or an astrophysicist, they don't care. What is important for them is solutions, whether they come from unidisciplinary, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. But in order to, get a better feel of their problems, we need to keep our disciplinary background at our institutes. Go as the interdisciplinary team. And strong and committed leadership and staff support, very, very critical. Better systems of monitoring and evaluation along with accountability sharing. Very important is changes in the reward system. There is a myth like, people say, our colleagues say, अरे भाई ऐसा काम करने से हाई इम्पैक्ट फैक्टर जर्नल में पब्लिकेशन नहीं हो सकते. But friends, I can show you hundreds of papers published through a participatory experimentation done in one tiny village. Papers published in, journals of a very high impact factor, something like 7, 8, 10, like that. Then decentralized decision making on administrative and financial matters, very, very crucial. Because we need to respect and adhere to official formalities in terms of decision making, in terms of administrative decisions, more importantly, financial decisions. Because we all are bound by general finance rules or university finance rules. We can't deviate from that. But within the provision of rules, there is always room for decentralizing. Because what happens is when you are working in the field, immediately there is a problem, you need to procure some very critical inputs which may cost maybe 1,000, 2,000 rupees. So for that, if we say, अरे भाई मुझे वो sanction लेना है, approval लेना है, डायरेक्टर साहब छुट्टी पे हैं, वाइस चांसलर अब्रॉड में है, 15 दिन लगेगा, then that will ruin all your rapport that you have built. So what best we can do is win the confidence our higher ups, put money from your pocket and then get it reimbursed. There is always possibility of this. We have been consistently doing this whenever we work with farming communities. So like that, the institutional structure as well as functioning needs little fine tuning to enable the system to move more rigorously towards farmer participatory research or participatory technology development. Some efforts that we have done as a system on these lines are like, it's not at all a new one. Like we started with operational research project where the emphasis was on local customization of technologies, even in national demonstration scheme in the 60s. Then importantly, lab to land program. Then, the onus was on taking out more technologies, making them relevant in the lab, land conditions, field conditions. Very important in this participatory technology development scheme was IVLP or Institute Village Linkage Program, where for the first time we talked about technology customization, technology assessment and refinement. Thanks to Dr. P. Das our former Deputy Director General Extension Education, ICER, whose great innovative initiative this was. Now this has been mainstreamed into KVK system. Then under Atma also there was this initiative on developing strategic research extension plans with a lot of emphasis on participatory problem solving, participatory research, participatory extension. And today, Indian Council of Agriculture Research has a very high ambitious flagship program called as Farmer First. This entire mega project with 52 research institutions like ICR institutes and agriculture universities and a consortium of 4 national institutes are involved in this project, which is entirely based on the philosophy of participatory technology development. And we have been privileged to be part of this project. Recently, we have brought out outcome-based evaluation of Farmer First project implementation during 4 years, 2016 to 20. It has shown very, very promising results, very, very promising trends in terms of productivity increase, in terms of increase in income level of farmers, plus very importantly, perception changes of both farming communities and scientific communities. Some of our colleagues, said even to that extent, so the kind of satisfaction I have derived by being in this Farmer First project for the last 3-4 years is much, much higher than winning the most prestigious award of ICR or even, publishing a paper, say, in very highest impact factor journal like Nature. This kind of satisfaction I am getting now because I am working very intensely, very closely with farmers. There is so much to learn from them. So it's happening. If you want any conviction on how this participatory technology development is happening, keep on visiting ICR website every now and then. There is one section devoted to KVK News where there will be some success stories reported on participatory technology development. This is a live case which happened in, I think, Central Soil Salinity Research Institute, Karnal. We had the privilege of again working very closely with some of these Farmer First project implementation centers, whereby we have documented a lot of farmer innovations, participatory technology developed and successfully mainstreamed through participatory processes. There is one like backyard poultry in mango orchards. It was there earlier, but then through this Farmer First project, they have popularized this particular technology with a lot of gains in terms of productivity, in terms of income, especially for smallholder farmers. So friends, partnership with farming communities, stakeholder engagement is a strategic management issue. Participatory technology development has immense potential to complement formal research. It enables need-based technology development and dissemination, and importantly, institutionalization of PTT net states attitudinal, structural, and functional changes in the system. It is NARIS now. I would like to end my session, this presentation rather, with one disclaimer kind of thing. This is a beautiful, piece of work I have taken from Shirley White. She is the development communicator. About the term participation itself, what she says is, the word participation is kaleidoscopic. It changes its color and shape at the will of the hands in which it is held. And just like the momentary image in that kaleidoscope, it can be very fragile and elusive, changing from one moment to another moment. Beautiful. That means this PTD can mean many things for many people. Its meaning, its understanding is highly diverse. For some, if you make one visit in your entire career to a farmer's field, you can go on claiming that I have done participatory technology development. Whereas for some other colleague, some other professional, even after working for 3 decades very closely with farmers, they say I'm not yet satisfied with the level of participation that farmer should have. So the real meaning of participation is continuously working together. So if you want more conviction on some of the thoughts I shared with this presentation, through this presentation, you watch these two great movies. One is a tribute to our thespian, whom we lost recently, Mr. Dilip Kumar, Yusuf Khan Saab. And the second one is his prodigy, Mr. Shah Rukh Khan Swades. Very beautifully in these two movies, the pains and gains, pains and pleasures of participatory working as captured and showcased. Thank you very much. Mr. Majid, I am through with my presentation. Can we take some questions now? Dr. Prakash?
Sir.
Yeah, okay.
Sir, sir, namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Thank you, sir.
Namaskar.
Sir, it's very good to hear you from very long period of time. Very nice presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, you mentioned about some of the strategies for building, to establish a rapport. So here, you know very well that whenever we visit, any officials visit villages, many farmers come to us expecting that we give them something in kind,
okay,
or cash. So that is still it is there in the mindset of the farmers.
Absolutely, they have all the right. 1 second, Dr. Satyal, 1 second. I'll allow you to speak,
okay,
but before that, 1 second. I understand the question, your point of view. They have all the right to ask that, because who has made them to ask like that?
It's we only, sir.
Okay. Do we have any option?
That's what I was. What could be done to just in the sense of just you said one suggestion you have given.
Yes.
Just accountability, increasing their accountability, improving their accountability by without giving anything free of cost.
Yes.
That is very good thing.
That is one way of.
But are there any other suggestions, sir, for that?
Other suggestions?
Because when we are doing when I was in the health department, you know, sir, we were doing a lot of work there. Whenever we go to survey, collecting information and blood sample and anthropometric data, there the farmers used to come to us expecting something there also. In all the, not only in agriculture, in every field of discipline, it is there, still it is there. But there, how to improve their capacity, how to change their attitude. Are there any new things done in this area, sir?
There are a lot of things, new things. Rather, they are not at all new things. They are old things. Ways. One very unfortunate thing outright I would like to tell to you, Dr. Satyal, as well as my other colleagues. There is no ready-made answer to this very pertinent, relevant question.
Yeah.
Many of our colleagues.
Yes,
there is no ready-made or like one size fits all kind of answer.
Sir, I just want to interrupt. Dr. Dayan, sir, please mute yourself. I think there is some disturbance.
Okay. So what I would suggest is, there are ways in which we can tackle the situation. The first one is, when you're during your first round of interactions, don't make any promise. Even though farmers will ask definitely, what are you going to give us? You tell them there is lot of things which we can allow you to gain yourself. We are not going to give you anything, but then we will make you to gain many things. Say in government, whether it's a state government or central government, they have a lot of programs meant exclusively for you. Are you aware of them? No. We will connect you to those programs. But for that, some of you have to take the first step. Prepare some kind of, facilitators from your side, number one. Number two, you have to deliver one success initial, maybe a small experiment where, you don't promise heavenly things initially. We'll take up a robotic study in your village, artificial intelligence will completely automate your farms. That's okay. But then initially take a very small, visible kind of intervention by which farmers can realize you have to be little tactical intelligent in initiating, like, entry point activity or the first intervention. So once there is little success, it will start, inciting other farmers. That's one. Secondly, there are a lot of success stories within the myriad of our country, landscape of our country. Like one very famous I have seen, very, very communicative, very strong communicative evidence that comes from Hivre Bazaar in Maharashtra. British Broadcasting Corporation has documented a beautiful video of about 12 minutes duration. It is available on the internet by the name Miracle Water Village of India. So in your first, second round of visits with farming community, play those videos, this kind of videos. So these kind of interventions will help realize, making farmers realize their own potential. In that entire Hivre Bazaar, there was absolutely no role of any external agency. Everything was started by one great individual by name Mr. Popatrao Pawar, the then Sarpanch, and then cooperation of entire village. So he had that very knack of convincing the farming community. Then we have seen in our earlier mega project, National Agriculture Innovation Project, by a little cost sharing, like, in reclaiming some of the defunct water storage structures, at least let the farmers put their labor so that they own the work, they own the intervention. Then once everything falls in place, becomes a success, you tell this is not our success, that is your success. This is your gain. This is what we wanted to give you. That is my reply to Dr. Dayanand.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any more? Actually, for want of time, I was not able to talk. Like, there is this Bharti Agro Industries Foundation, BIFE, a very, very famous national level non-governmental organization. They have done wonderful, work on this participatory technology development, especially in small ruminants. Then Mairada in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, a lot of initiatives on these lines. AME Foundation, Agriculture, Man, Ecology. In fact, there is a very strong parallel thinking going on, even in the formal research world, on the concept and practice of agroecology, which in its heart and soul is nothing but participatory technology development. Are there any plant breeders or those with genetics and plant breeding specializations? They may be familiar with farmer participatory varietal improvements. In fact, the plant breeding program started with farmers method only. Bulk selection is the farmers method of improving varieties that we learned from farmers. Dr. Prakash, any more questions?
No, sir. I'm just going to the chat box also.
Okay, let me just run through.
Yeah, we do not have as such any questions in this chat box also, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, if there are no questions, I think we'll move ahead with the formal vote of thanks, sir.
Dr. Prakash, just before that, I would thank you and other organizers once again. It's been really I am fascinated by this program, let me tell you honestly.
Thank you, sir.
I think, the great lesson for all of us, let there be, we don't wish any further pandemics and all, but even in such crisis moments, how by coming together, the lesson, the participation or working together, how it can bring a lot of good to the larger system. Very innovatively designed program with a lot of content, very focused topics, and your choice of speakers is really, I think, very, very emphatic and need of the hour. I have some more resources on this particular topic, which I'll be sharing with Dr. Prakash, who
Sure,
in turn can share with the other participants, maybe tomorrow or latest by Monday.
Sure, sir.
Which
Sure.
is, thank you once again.
Yeah, if there are no queries or questions from the participants, I take this opportunity to thank our resource person, Dr. Bharat Sontaki sir. In fact, actually, we had a few more topics of discussion, but ultimately I chose this because this is a very relevant topic since most of us are from KVK background, and that will be really helpful for all of them while working in the field, and many of them are actually even students as well as the university faculty. So that was the reason we took up this topic. And on behalf of all our participants, as well as on my personal behalf and on behalf of our organizers, I would like to thank him for sparing his valuable time as well as sharing his experiences. In fact, he was busy actually, like we had to shift him some 2 or 3 times, but although he could make it out and he could address all our participants. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your valuable discussion with the participants.
Dr. Prakash, thank you once again. Very genuine request to all the participants. If you are not already vaccinated, immediately go for vaccination. That is the victory sign for all of us to win the battle against Corona or COVID.
Yeah.
Second, continue to stay safe, following all the COVID protocols. Thank you. Wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And for the information of all other participants, like I would like to mention that tomorrow we have a lecture by Dr. Sarvan Raj of Manage Hyderabad, who will be dealing with the digital media in agriculture extension and advisory services. And then we have got, actually in the afternoon, we have got one lecture from Mafsu Nagpur by Dr. Sariput Lange, who will be discussing about entrepreneurship development in agriculture and allied sectors. Until then, I wish you all have a good day, and let us all meet again at 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure.